Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the more or less weekly live stream where we talk about HR, the realities of HR, some of the BS that is propagated in the world of HR, and particularly finding a job, and what it looks like from the other side of the table, what's going on, what's actually happening versus what the sort of corporate party line is about this stuff. And the title of today's episode is False Promises and Corporate Lies. Are you falling for these traps? And this is episode number 8. So yes, we are going to be talking about that stuff. Now, this is an interactive live stream. It's a kind of a Q&A also. So if you see my face, you should see a chat box. Get in the chat and participate. Let me know what your take is on some of this stuff. I'm sure you could probably relate to this topic. So if you can, let me know why. We're going to be getting into that. But first, as always, I want to thank my YouTube channel members, my Patreons, my super thanks donors. You guys are awesome. And my participants. So if you are here, if you're listening to this, or you are watching this right now, thank you. Hopefully you get something out of this. Yeah, we're going to get into, you know what? I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump into this. Like I always say, something I want to say to start this off is that you are awesome. You know, everyone in their own way, in a certain way, is awesome in our own unique way. These days, for some reason, we really seem to be trying to reduce people to a demographic. You know, you are who your demographic segment is, and I think that's stupid. We are all individuals. Everybody has we have a diversity of thought, a diversity of background, diversity of personality type, diversity of experiences. You know, this is what makes people unique. You know, we have all our own ways of thinking and our own personality. And for that reason, you are awesome. And there is a job for every person that every person is ideal for. Just a matter of connecting to it. Now, I want to say, if you're between jobs right now, you know, you're at your lowest, right? What really sucks about corporate recruiting and all this kind of world is that, you know, right at this moment, you know, you have to deal with some of the most officious, incompetent people that you'll probably ever meet. And that really doesn't help. You know, that doesn't do anybody any favors. So let's get into this. As I said earlier, we're going to talk about false promises and corporate lies. And the whole purpose of this is not just to bitch and, you know, wallow in negativity, but it's to try and recognize what's actually going on, what part of what you're hearing is self-serving propaganda, and what part of what you're hearing is actually the truth, and learning what to operate. Because everyone should act in their own self-interest when it comes to this stuff. You do what's right for you. You know, you don't do what's right for an organization, right? They're looking out for themselves. They would have you behave in a way that serves them. But, you know, what I think everyone should do, and the attitude everyone should have, is to look out for yourself and do what's in your own self-interest, because, damn it, these people are not going to do that. I first realized that when I worked for a large corporation like 30 years ago, something like that. And their policy was to get people that had just come out of school, people that had never had a previous corporate job. So they'd get people young, fresh fish, you know, and that way they could tell you, oh, this is normal, and this is how you should behave and how you should feel. And these young kids wouldn't know any different because this was their first career job they were having. So a lot of them believed this. A lot of them drunk the Kool-Aid, and it was this self-serving propaganda that tried to persuade the workforce to act in the interests of the corporation rather than in their own self-interest. And I saw some pretty bad results. what you should get ideally is you should get people acting in their own interest, and it also serves the organization. It makes sense for you to work there. You're getting something out of it, and they're getting something out of having you work there. That should be ideal. Okay. So let's get into this. Now, I've written some notes. I've just written down in point form. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 points that I want to start off with. And I'd like to get you guys to jump in. I see there are 9 people here. So jump into the chat. Let me know what you think of this. And give me your own versions of these. The first one of 7 is, when it comes to corporate lies, is that in a job interview, you should always tell the full, complete truth. Hold nothing back, right? Be honest. Don't hold anything back, and that will serve you well. I don't know if you've heard this, but this is something that, in corporate circles, HR would like you to believe. They'd like to have you believe this and conduct yourself appropriately, accordingly. To this. So, for example, the biggest example of this is when they ask you things like, what is your weakness? And you go to a job interview, and I know there's a lot of videos out there, and there's a lot of resources on the internet, like articles and things also, that would have you believe that the way to answer is for you to be completely honest. Just be completely honest. Give us your weaknesses. Hold nothing back, right? Tell us everything, and it'll be in your own self-interest. Crap. Absolute crap. The other one is, why did you leave your last job? Or where they're trying to get the dirt on you, right? Have you ever had a conflict with a coworker, with a boss, anything like this? Have you ever failed at something? All those types of questions, they're trying to rake up the dirt on you. They're trying to find areas that are potentially problems, right? That could be a reason why they eliminate you from the running, right? And the conventional wisdom is for you to just be honest, fully and complete, and say, how you failed and why you failed and what you've learned since, and, how you're working on yourself or something like that. And the problem is that in this case, that flies in the face of a principle that modern HR holds sacred, which is that past behavior predicts future behavior, right? This is what people are taught in HR programs, right? And I know this because I taught in HR programs, and this is part of the curriculum. And it's basically saying that it's the principle behind behavioral questions. They say, tell me about a time you did this, or tell me about a time, you did that. And what they're doing is they don't actually care about what you did in some other job. They're only asking you this because, if you did a certain thing in that scenario for a previous employer, the implications is that if we were to hire you and we put you in that scenario again, this is how you would act, right, in the future, if this was to come up, right? It's about the future. It's not about the past, right? So, already that reveals a flaw with this type of question. They say, tell me about a time when this happened. What'd you do? Right? Now, maybe you have encountered that in the past, but it's not necessarily something you would do again, right? Like, you've learned there might be a better way of handling it. So that's how you would do it in the future, right? But this type of question, it kind of ignores that, right? Tell me about a time you failed. Give us the full truth. Why did you leave your last job? You were fired. Maybe you were laid off, something like this. Tell us all about it. Be completely honest, right? And there's people out there advising job seekers that if you get asked that question in a job interview, just be honest. Tell them, yes, I was fired and it was for this reason, but I've learned that, I shouldn't do that, and I'm aware of that now, and I'm not going to do it in the future, right? Wrong. You've just eliminated yourself. This is the thing. So it's a fallacy to tell the full, complete truth in job interviews when asked. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating that people outright lie and falsify things blatantly. I'm talking about selectively withholding details that will incriminate you. And I'm talking about putting a positive spin on everything you do say, minimizing any downsides. I mean, that's how you persuade people, right? Because when people are digging at the dirt, your job, as it were, in a job interview is to make sure they don't find it. That's the whole point, right? So don't believe that you should just tell the full, complete, story about how this bad thing, affected you. No, it's false. It's absolute false. But there's so many people out there that are advising you to do what's in their interest. It makes it easier for them to interview you, not what's in your interest. It's directly opposed to what's in your self-interest. So that's the first example. Now, if anyone knows any examples or you want to share a story with that, get in the chat because I'm interested to hear. And by the way, I'm not here to monologue the entire time. I'd rather interact with you guys. So all the more reason to get in the chat. Excuse me. Another corporate lie. Well, this could technically not be a lie, but in most instances it is. And that is when they say we have no money. Right? Have you heard that? We can't do this because we have no money. We can't do that because we have no money. Trust me, I was a CEO. They got money. You can always get money, right? But it's just that they don't want to do it, right? So it's a convenient excuse to justify anything that you don't want to do, right? Have you ever heard that? Has anyone ever said that to you at work? We don't have the money to buy the right equipment to do this safely. We don't have the right equipment to buy this, for us to buy to enable us to do this job ergonomically, right? We have no money. They always seem to have the money when it's something they care about, right? So that's definitely a factor. I see there are 21 people here. Thank you for joining me today. Get in the chat. This is an interactive live stream. We're talking about, the title is False Promises and Corporate Lies. Are you falling for these traps? We covered 2 already. First one was for you to tell the full, complete truth in job interviews when asked. I'm not advocating you lie, but don't just give them the full truth, especially when they're trying to rake up dirt. And the second one was we have no money when they don't want to do something, right? That would presumably cost money. The budget's too tight. Excellent. The winner of the first person to get into the chat today is the guy with the bow tie. That's awesome. I like your handle. I'm in Grand Forks. Do you ever come down here? I would love to meet up before leaving the area permanently. Yeah, I have been to Grand Forks many times. Yes, because I am in Winnipeg, Canada, and we are geographically close to Grand Forks. A lot of people from up here go down to Grand Forks to do shopping, to get access to some stores that are in America, without having to really drive into America very far. So, yes. I don't have plans for a meetup. I toyed with the idea in the past of saying, maybe like renting a place and saying like, hey, everybody come down to this event or something, I'll be there. But I don't think I have a lot of that many viewers that are in sort of my geographic region, enough to justify it anyway. But let me know if that's not the case, because I'd be up for that. Okay, third of 7 corporate lies that they tell is your promotion or raise is coming. Right? You've heard that one? Back when I was a manager, I remember there were a lot of conflicting forces for who to promote, or if you have a position that's a little bit higher, like a supervisor position or manager position, how to fill it, right? Because the conventional wisdom was, you take your best employee and you promote them to be the supervisor or something. Now, very early in my career, I observed that that's not what happened. In fact, I started out my career in the railroad, and it was a terrible experience. I was in the railroad for 8 years. And, something that I observed that they did more than once was they would find the worst worker in a particular team or gang or whatever you want to call it, group. And they would promote that person into the supervisor role if there was a vacancy for the supervisor. And the reasoning behind this was, we don't want to lose our best people. We don't want them to come off, the shop floor or whatever the work environment was, and instead go into the office. We want our best workers to be doing what they do best, which is working, at their station, right? We don't want to take our best person out of that role and make them the supervisor. Let's take the person that is the least productive. So if we have to lose one of the workers, we lose the least valuable person. So in theory, our productivity is not really impacted that much. And yet we've got an experienced person as the supervisor. And they actually did this. Now, can you imagine working in a place where the supervisors have been handpicked as the worst of the workers? But without any training and in an environment where the morale is very low to begin with, right? And yes, it did sink lower when this was happening. I mean, first of all, what signal does that send to your workforce, right? Terrible, right? And then what's the quality of the supervision that you're getting? Would you want your boss to be the worst worker that was in your role, supervising you, right? Can you go to them and ask questions and get help, right? Probably not, right? So there's a lot of conflicting forces there. The other thing, of course, is should you get an internal candidate or an external candidate, right? And, a lot of places, they want to foster this idea that if you are good at your job, we will promote you into, a higher role. And the problem is that there are actual reasons why you may wish to get an external candidate rather than an internal candidate. First of all, the most obvious reason is that if you have an internal candidate that's promoted into a role, you're not actually filling a vacancy. You're actually just moving the vacancy around. Because if you move someone from here into this role, right? This role is now filled. The vacancy here is now filled, but you've created one right here. So now you have to hire another employee here. Now, if you were to have a vacancy here, instead of promoting this person into it, you simply hired someone from the outside and put them in that role. In one step, you are filling the vacancy and not creating another vacancy, right? So there's some forces there that push you to hire externally. The other thing is that if things aren't all rosy and you're not happy with the status quo, you want some new thinking, some new ideas, maybe a new approach that has a chance of improving. You would hire an external candidate rather than, if you are happy with the status quo, then you would maybe hire an internal candidate. So there's all kinds of things going on there. But they've made that promise many times to employees. Oh yeah, you're doing a great job. And then you ask about a raise or a promotion and then, it's coming, but it's not, right? And when you get the external candidate moving into that role, you get some of these guys leaving invariably, right? Because they're annoyed that they weren't promoted into it, right? That's also a thing. The guy with the bow tie says, okay, I have had this happen when they told me my promotion might happen, but they wanted to keep me in my position. I had to go outside the organization to get promoted. This is why I'm leaving Grand Forks. That's because that person makes them look better as well. Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's all kinds of personal politics involved in this stuff too. But yeah, okay, so let's handle these 2 points one after another. Your first point there, having to leave Grand Forks because you had to go outside the organization to get promoted. That's precisely what I did. That's how I climbed the ladder in the first part of my career. Was I sort of did, I wouldn't say job hopping, but I stayed at places to learn the position. But when I felt like, okay, I'm over the learning curve. I pretty much get this job. I can do this job. I feel comfortable. I feel like I can hold my own. The problem is that where I was, it was a culture where people respected seniority a lot more than they should. We didn't have a seniority system officially, but unofficially, they kind of did. And so, I remember my boss was like 60 years old or something. And it's like, in order for me to get promoted, I had to wait until this person retired, for the chance that I would move up into their position. And I told myself, I'm not waiting like 5 to 10 years for that to happen, even if it's not guaranteed. I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but you know what I mean? Because I'd observed in that same place that wasn't always a rule, and this is common. And they've strung along many people in general saying, oh yeah, you be a good employee and you go above and beyond, and you maintain this for a few years and you will eventually be rewarded with a promotion, right? And sometimes that's crap. Sometimes it's the fault of the organization. They deliberately put someone else in that position instead of you. Other times, in all fairness, it's not the fault of the organization. Maybe the business turns sour. Maybe they're downsizing, or, maybe one person they thought was retiring, but then they decided not to retire. So things happen, but there's no guarantees. And that's typical of this generation now, that people are not willing to believe promises. Like back in the 70s and 80s, people would believe promises, company promises. When you retire, we got you covered. You contributed to the pension plan, so it'll be there for you. And in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, people really saw how that was flawed. You work for 20, 30 years expecting this big pension, and then bam, it's gone, right? There were some big scandals, certainly in the 2000s, that showed that to be a big lie. But across the board, everybody was experiencing that. So that's that's what's changed. People are less likely to believe some of these promises, right? Have less faith in the company. So that was the third one. Your promotion or raise is coming. Number 4 out of 7 is loyalty to the company will be rewarded. That's very simple. Loyalty will be rewarded. So they expect you to pass up other opportunities because they want you to stay. And presumably, you would pass up other opportunities because you're expecting to get some kind of reward. And that rarely happens, at least in my experience. Your experience may differ. Let me know if that's not what you're seeing. But that's certainly what I've seen. Number 5, don't work 2 jobs. Have you ever had an employer say this to you? We don't like the fact that, you work here, but then you also work somewhere else. Even if it's like a part-time thing, like just something you do occasionally. We don't like that, right? And the reasoning behind this usually is that they want you to devote all your time and your energy to working for this company. So when you're not at work, you're supposed to be resting and relaxing and recharging so that you can come back to work tomorrow, right? That's the theory behind it. You have your sleep time, and then you have your sort of food and family and recreation time, all to, help you be revitalized so you can come back and give 100% the next day, right? That's the theory. So they don't like it when, you leave work and then you go to a second job, right? The other thing also is that now your loyalty is divided between, your 2 jobs. If you're just working one job, your loyalty is to that job. If they ask you to come in, you come in. If they ask you to stay for overtime, you stay overtime. If you're sick, you call in sick, you're legitimately sick. If you're working a second job, maybe the second job wants you to work overtime, and so you call in sick to your first job or something like that, right? They don't like you having loyalties to other commitments too. So that's the issue. And obviously, for some people, they choose to have more than one job, and it obviously is to their advantage to do this. But the company doesn't want you to do that. They want you to only work there and nowhere else, right? The guy with the bow tie says, I believe a second job can give you a different skill set, which can make you more marketable for your next opportunity. Of course it can. Yeah. The more stuff you do, the more experience you get, the more valuable you are. I mean, yes, absolutely. Now, the downside, of course, is if it like wears you down, if it's just so grueling working, that many hours in a week, every week, there obviously can be a downside to it. But my point is that, the company doesn't want you acting in your self-interest. They want you acting only in their interest. That's right. That's what I have an issue with. And where they step over the line with this is where they tell you this. They have official policies and, you can't work anywhere else if you're working here. And all this kind of stuff. I mean, you can legally, but, unofficially, they don't like it and there are consequences. The guy with the bow tie says, I believe a second job. Yeah, we got that. What about people serving on a board of directors for a second job? Well, that's at a higher level. Like what I've been talking about is basically at the worker level. Board of directors, depending on in what capacity, sometimes you can, like it's not a full-time job. And in some cases, it's like you meet once every quarter. You know what I mean? It depends what we're talking about here. It can be a very minimalistic kind of job if you're just serving on a board of directors for other companies. It's almost like having a customer advisory board or an industry advisory board. It's almost the same thing in practice because you're not really there doing actual work. You're just sort of advising. You're monitoring and advising, and that's about it, right? They are making bank do that. What does that mean? Like banks, people on that are banks. Yeah, well, I mean that's a specialized sort of thing, and I'm not sure what they're doing. And I assume you're talking about the United States, right? The other one, number 6, is we're not downsizing, right? Unlike when they say we have no money, which is like self-serving, which is like they don't want to spend money on something. So they just say, it's not that we won't, it's that we can't, right? That's how that works. This is kind of the opposite. This is like where things are actually going south, but there's also a need to represent the organization in a favorable light externally to the public, and by necessity, it means you also have to do it internally to your own employees, right? So it's rare that they're going to sort of volunteer to their workforce that, we're in trouble and, it's getting really serious. It's rare that they will volunteer this before they have to, before they actually start making layoffs or something. So the problem is that there could be layoffs coming, and they know that there's layoffs coming, but they won't tell anyone they won't tell anyone publicly till the very last minute. And that's where it's a little bit arguably unethical, right? We're not downsizing. Everything's hunky-dory. We're doing great, right? There's a need to sort of have a very optimistic portrayal of how an organization is doing, because that is good for the customers, for maintaining sales. It's also good for investors and that side of things if the company is publicly traded. And it's also good for industry relationships and partnerships and all this kind of stuff. If you have suppliers or vendors or other, entities that you're doing business with, for them to not get jittery and decide instead to work with someone else instead of you, it's very important to present a very positive game face. regardless of the reality. And unfortunately, employees can be on the losing side of this because a lot of those entities in the business environment, they're smart enough, they're savvy enough to recognize their a company's propaganda and sales pitch for what it is. Employees tend to be a little bit more gullible because they, you're just not expecting your employer to lie straight to you, like face to face. And they do when it comes to this stuff. So they may not tell you that there's layoffs or downsizing or anything until the very last minute, at which point it's too late for you to do anything to act in your own interest, maybe to look for other job opportunities before you're laid off, or move to another organization, or, do some kind of transition, or, whatever, just do some kind of preparation for it. Right? There's been many people that have been screwed over on this one. I'm going to go over to the guy with the bow tie. The guy with the bow tie is really active in the chat today. There's 18 people here. Get in the chat and let me know what you think about this, or if you have any alternate suggestions or share any experiences. Making lots of money being on the board. Yeah, they will never tell you until the last minute when they are downsizing. Yeah, exactly. Making lots of money being on the board. Yeah, okay. If you're on the board of a bank, yes, of course, it's going to be a lot of compensation there. I'm not in banking, so I don't know any of the details, but I do know it's a hell of a lot. Where I am in Canada, there's only like 5 major banks, right? In the States, there's like 1 million banks, I think, or is it 2 million banks? I can't remember, but in Canada, there's basically 5 big ones, so that you really limit what you can do there, how many boards of directors there are for those things. Yeah, and then finally, the last corporate lie that's a popular lie, that's kind of a cliche, is that change is coming and that it's good. And that if you don't 100% embrace this, you're just someone who fears change. Right? Have you heard that one? Right? Yeah, change it can be good, but it can also be horrifying. It can be disastrous too, right? But they like to present every change as if it's something positive. This is something they just have to do. There's reasons why they do this, because they want to maintain essentially their profitability. In order to maintain profitability, you have to always present a positive spin to everything that you do. You can't admit that, what you're doing is in any way a reaction to things going badly, right? So you have to put a positive spin on everything, including anything that might eliminate jobs, right? If you've had the misfortune of being on the wrong side of that, right? So that's something that's very real. So if you hear any of these, I've gone through 7 of these, okay? If you hear any of these, or if you're told any of these, hopefully you should be able to recognize it for what it is, right? Now, don't take my word for anything. Open your eyes and get some experiences and observe and make up your own mind on these things. It's not about who you listen to. It's about what you experience and what you know for a fact, because you've gone through it. So all I would say is watch out for these and always do what's in your best interest. Probably the biggest one being is that loyalty to an employer can be overrated. It's good to have a place where you work that you like and that treats you well. Trust me, that's like really awesome. And I've seen a lot of small and mid-sized businesses really clean up by treating their workforce well. But if you are not in that situation, these are organizations that don't deserve your loyalty, and always do what's right for yourself. If that means looking around for other jobs, right? Looking for other opportunities, never stop looking. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, that's all I have to talk about in this live stream, all the notes I had. So Get in the chat. Let me know what you guys are wondering, what you guys are dealing with, and I will be happy to try and help you out if I can, to answer questions or anything like that. If you see my face, you should see a chat box nearby. Get in the chat and let me know. So far, we've had one participant. This is the first time I've experienced this. One person just chatting away to me. But there are others of you. There are 21 of you here. So let me know what your take is on all this stuff. Are there any other corporate lies that you've heard that are ridiculously transparent to you now, and you want to share this for the benefit of some younger people out there or people less experienced with the job market? Now's your chance. Yeah. If you're looking for a job right now, just remember something. Always remember this. You are awesome. You are highly employable. And there is a job out there right now that's perfect for you. It's just a matter of connecting to it, right? There are people out there right now that are looking for someone exactly like you. And you're over here looking for that perfect job. And it's just a matter of connecting with it, right? So always use more than one way of getting a job. Don't just respond to internet job postings. There are many ways of getting a job. If you are an introvert, if you have social anxiety, some of those might be a bit scary to you. So it might limit some of your options, but there's still a lot of other things you can do. So check that out. I did a live stream earlier today where I specifically talked about one thing you can do if you're in that situation. The guy with the bow tie says, you give great advice. People really need to take your advice very seriously. Well, thank you, guy with the bow tie. That's high praise. I appreciate it. Cape Canaveral says, what is a good strategy when changing industry from automotive to another, for instance? Okay, here's what I'm going to say, and you may not like this because you may not have experience with this, but the way to change careers or change industries, a lot of times the way to do that is only possible with networking. Now, why do I say this? I say this because think of how recruiters assess candidates in this modern age, right? Their metric for everything is years of experience, right? And just the nature of a lot of recruiters, I'm not necessarily putting them down, but because there are some really good ones out there, but their MO is that, like, if you've never done a job before, how would you ever think that you could do that job? That's how these people think, which you and I know is ridiculous, but nevertheless, that's how they think. They think that the only thing that you can do is something you've done before. It's stupid. If the world did work that way, no one would ever be able to change careers, and no one would be able to ever learn anything new. It's ridiculous, right? But yet, that's how a lot of recruiters will judge your job application when you apply for a job. What's the first thing they do? If you sort of apply for a job, like not something in a heavily regulated industry like medicine or air traffic control or something. I mean, in order to work as a doctor, you need a medical degree. I mean, it's a very standardized career path. But for something like 90% of jobs where the career path isn't that formalized, right? You can jump around. You can have skills in one area, and a lot of those skills are transportable, and you go to another area, right? But what will recruiters do? You send in your job application for, I don't know, construction foreman, okay? Something like that. And the first thing they're going to look at is to see how many years of experience do you have as a construction foreman? And if they look down your resume and they see 0 years experience as a construction foreman, they conclude, oh, we're going to eliminate you because how could you possibly think you could be a construction foreman when you've never done it before, right? That's how recruiters are trained to think. It's not that these people are all idiots and they've come to that same idiotic conclusion. It's that they were trained to think like this. Okay? So now you and I both know that if you've worked in any number of jobs, maybe you've been a supervisor, maybe you've worked in construction in one area, maybe a specialized area, but there's a job opening for like general contractor and they're looking for a supervisor of a team or something like that, to do framing or roofing or, God knows what. It's like, you know what I mean? Maybe you fixed your own roof at home and maybe you've worked in the construction business for 10 years. You could totally be the supervisor of that team for doing whatever they're going to be doing, but just because you haven't worked in that exact job, they'll judge you like this. So the way to do it is with networking. What that means is that you present yourself to these people. They get to meet you. They get to talk with you. They see that you're awesome. They see that you're professional. They see that, they like dealing with you. And if you can make a sort of compelling case, like, look, I may not have worked in that exact role, but I have all the pieces of it by working in various other roles and doing all these other things, right? In networking, if they like you, they'll give you a chance, right? That's how that works. And if you've never heard of this and you don't think this is real, but yet you've observed people that seem totally unqualified for jobs that are just hired or promoted into those roles, this is why. And pretty much when you change careers, you almost have no choice. You have to do some variation of this. Because if you go through a recruiter, you are guaranteed to fail because the first thing they're going to look for is previous experience. And by definition, if you're changing careers, you will have no previous experience in this role. So, you know what I mean? You have to sort of make a one-to-one sort of case for yourself, right? And you ask anyone who has changed careers in their life and, that hasn't like sort of stopped, gone back to school and then started the new career, like starting at the bottom, like from scratch and built everything back up over many, many years. I'm talking about someone who's moved laterally over to a different industry. You ask any of those people, and this is what they'll say. For example, I went back to university and I was the teacher. I'd never been a teacher in my life, right? It's like, what's the first question you would ask a teacher? You would say, how many years experience do you have teaching people at this level? And, my answer is 0. I've never done this before, right? So I had to go the networking route where they already know that, I have all the abilities to be a teacher. I have the functional knowledge and, I can talk to people. I'm not doing a very good job right now today, but that's kind of, you can demonstrate. And sometimes if you're lucky, they'll give you an interview where you have to do a demonstration, right? So if you've never done it before, but you know your stuff and you can do it, if it's something that's possible to demonstrate for them, that's another way too. But you can't always rely on that. So hopefully that makes sense, Cape Canaveral. Okay. Check out my live stream that I did earlier today. It's just look at my channel and I talk in more details about how you can do the networking thing, especially if you're an introvert. Also, I've got a course where I put all my advice if you want to check that out. There's a link in the description. And that gives you like templates and all, step by step what you do and all this kind of stuff. Okay, David says, in terms of loyalty, it should be a win-win situation. Otherwise, it's just one-sided and the employers always pretend to be loyal to their employees, but most of them expect it from their employees. Exactly. And you know why they do, if you see what I'm saying, you know why they do that? It's because it works. Because you can pull the wool over the eyes of some of your workforce. You will always be able to do that. And that's why they do it, because it's effective. If you have a lot more sheep than wolves in your workforce, you can do it even more successfully. Wen Yi Hu says, the recruiter at the first call indicated base salary of X is the upper end for the role. You can almost be guaranteed that that's a lie. As this is currently my only viable lead while unemployed, should I avoid negotiating the base salary? Okay, here's the deal, Wen Yi, who, if you only have two options, option one is to be unemployed, and option two is to take this job. Okay? And you don't want to do option one. So it must be option two. Then the safest way of securing option number two is to not negotiate. Just whatever they offer, you say, great, let's get started. And you sign, right? Now, if that's your situation and you're desperate for this job, that's what I would do in that situation, okay? Negotiation is based on not your ability to persuade. You see, people think that negotiation is sort of almost like sales. It really isn't, okay? Some people might tack a little bit of that on, but it's not part of the fundamentals of what's going on. Negotiation is based on having other options, right? You see, let's pretend that you had a second job offer from another place that was offering you more, okay? And, maybe you like the money for the second job, but the first job, maybe they're right next door to where you live. It would be a lot more convenient. So you'd like to work there, right? But in the end, it doesn't really matter. You'll go with whoever will pay you more, okay? Let's pretend that's the situation. So what you could do is you could go back to employer one and say, look, thank you very much for your offer. I'm very flattered, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to need you to scratch out that number and write in this number. And if you can, then we got a deal. And I'll start whenever you want. Right? And if they say, no, absolutely not, you say, okay, I'm sorry then, goodbye. Right? It's just that simple. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to take into account anything they say. The only thing that you care about is it a yes or a no? Right? Because these guys are going to pay me X and you're paying me X minus 10 or something. I'm going to need you to write in X. It's just that simple. I'm not going to work here if they're offering me more and I've got that other offer in my hand. So sorry, right? So you don't have to take anything into account. It's just a question of what are your options and do you know what makes sense for you and what doesn't, right? Now, if you have no other options, it's like this or nothing, like unemployment, right? Then you really don't have any power to bargain with, right? You can try pushing back, but it's a bluff. And any bluff you make, if you're doing this properly, you have to be prepared that someone's going to call your bluff, right? So it's very risky to bluff when you have no better option, okay? You're bluffing with an empty hand. Okay, so that's what the situation actually is. Okay, that's what's actually going on. So if you don't have any other offers and you can't get any other offers, and you need a job now, then I would just accept it. Whatever they've given you, like X, I would just accept it. Okay, assuming in the offer the base salary is the upper end. Well, yeah. Like you can assume that they're lying when it comes to this stuff. Okay? Because what they want you to believe is they want you to believe that A, you got a good deal, and B, you're making, as much money as you could possibly make in that role. That's what they want you to believe, so that you will be happy to work there and you will be enthusiastic about working there. And you won't entertain any ideas of leaving to find something better because you believe that for what you do, you are already working at the top of the pay range. That's what they want you to believe, whether that is the reality or not. So it follows that they're going to say this, okay, to you. It's like in poker, it's like sort of showing everyone else, all your opponents, your cards. This is how high I can go. Now, what's more likely, like I don't know for a fact, I don't know this company or what the situation is, but what's more likely is that, I don't mean to burst your bubble or anything, but what I would not be amazed to learn is that in reality, they could go higher, But they don't want to reveal that to you, because if they did, then two things would happen. Number one, you could push for more money because you know that they can pay more money than they're offering you, right? And number two, if you were to take the job for this amount of money for X, but now you believe that it's not the maximum of the range, you're not going to be as enthusiastic about this job. You're not going to feel like you got a great deal. I mean, maybe they're offering you the minimum, you don't know. But if you believed you were in the middle, or you believed you're at the minimum, you would not be as enthused about working there. And you would probably be more likely to keep looking elsewhere to see if there's something better for you, right? Because you now know the range goes all the way up to here. You're right here at X, but they're willing to pay this much. So you know that I could be making this up here. So you're going to go look for that, right? Wendy says, yeah, as of yesterday, my, I guess, better, more ideal opportunity got hit with a hiring freeze. So I feel like just going to take what I'm offered. Yeah, listen, look, okay, Wendy, to look at the positive side here, just because you take this offer now for this amount doesn't mean that this is all you're going to make for the foreseeable future, right? You can take the offer now, start working, which if that's important to you, you have a job now and you've got money coming in, but you can still put out feelers and apply for other things. You'd be in a good position to apply for another job if you're currently working at this job, if they're offering more money, right? And then you can push to get the maximum, out of that other job, right? You can push for more then, because you got this job as a fallback option, right? So don't be too depressed about this. It's, what do they say? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Get this. If that's important to you, just take it and then start work. And then you have money coming in. You're in a position of security. Then if you choose, you can keep looking and see if there's anything better. And that's what you can push for, because now you have options, right? And there you go. Yeah, better instead of batter. Yeah, that's like a Dr. Seuss book, isn't it? Something about Tweedle Beetles and butter, battle, paddle, something. It was supposed to be a tongue twister. I think I learned it when I was like 6 or something. But it was poetic. I cried. It's okay. I also cried during Cannonball Run 2, even though it was manipulative. Have you seen that movie? Go out and see that movie, Cannonball Run 2, one of the worst movies ever made. But I like it. I like the original. I like Cannonball Run 1. So if you like Cannonball Run 1, you might like Cannonball Run 2. It's kind of a stretch, but, there you go. So that's just my 2 cents. Just live your life every day like you're in that movie, Cannonball Run. That's what I've tried to do. Hasn't really worked out, but, I don't quite look like Burt Reynolds yet, but nobody's perfect. This is what I have to do when nobody's in the chat, so I have nothing to respond to, right? I was just looking to see the viewers just drop off one by one as the more I talked. Yeah, get in the chat. I'm hoping to get a couple more people in the chat, respond to anything you've heard today, or ask something that you're wondering about or what you're struggling with, and I'll do my best to try and help you out, as usual. I do this live stream on Wednesdays at this time. This week, I also did it on Monday, just as an experiment. So I'm not sure if people are into that or not, but you got to try and see, right? Honest Interview Nitrous. I still think I should have called it Honest HR Plastique. I think that would be a better name. Plasteek. Plastique. Brian L. says, Bill is correct about companies saying change is coming and it's good, etc. to spin. In our case, they even had HR hosting a clown show explaining the psychology about change. Is that like a literal clown show? Or is that just a figure of speech? Because I'm honestly not sure anymore. It could go both ways. Maybe it's some of the people that actually went to clown college, right? They actually had that. If you're in the United States, didn't they have a clown college at one point? I think it shut down. But that was an actual place. So you would go and you'd learn how to be a clown. Maybe it was run like the military, like they would make you stand at attention and, drill you, like, I don't know. Hey, it's the US, so anything can happen. But no, you're absolutely right, Brian. That doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure everybody can tell their own stories of sickening corporate, like what do you call it? I've been out of the game so long, I can't remember what you call it. Like the sort of, team building exercises and things that are designed to improve morale, right? And some of them are just so bad, and they're so one size fits all. In my experience, I found that a lot of that stuff was geared towards extroverts, and it just ignored introverts, like introverts don't exist. It was like designed by a bunch of extroverts for extroverts. And so maybe they got something out of it, but, more than 50% of the workforce thought it was lame and they hated it, right? And I've seen that in more than one company too. And it's kind of, as far as I can tell, that's what everybody really thinks about it. So, yeah. Anyway, we are not getting too much questions in the chat, so I'm probably going to cut this one a little bit short today. But thank you for the 20 people who are here right now. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you got something out of this. Let me know if you have any suggestions of topics or something you'd like answered that I can help you with as the subject of future live streams. I usually talk about how to pass job interviews because that's a popular topic that people want to hear. I do like talking about business, but there doesn't seem to be a big audience for that. Or careers in general. I find that there's not as big of an audience for that either, which is surprising to me. But hey, so whatever you guys are interested in, whatever your goals are, let me know. And then I have an idea of kind of what to talk about for next time. Okay? Thanks very much. You guys are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. Check out my courses. I got 3 courses that can help you with various things if you're the type of person that takes courses. And I also have videos that explain how the courses work so you know what you're getting into. So check those out. It's all in the description box below the video feed of this live stream. Other than that, I will see you guys soon. Take care.